It's my pleasure and honor to be speaking with Shri N.P. Sarda ji, who is a veteran auditor and the past president of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India on certain matters relating to audit. Namaste Sarda ji.
No.
Thank you for your time, sir. So, I just wanted to discuss on some matters on audit, especially the perceived expectation gap between what the stakeholder wants from the auditor and what the auditor's actual performance is. So, can we get some clarity in terms of how do you see this expectation gap and what should the auditors be doing to bridge this expectation gap and move closer towards the stakeholder expectations?
I believe that the gap between the expectations of the society and the stakeholders and the actual performance of the auditors arises as a result of two factors. One is the gap between the promise and the performance of the auditors. Second is the gap between the promise and the expectations of the society. So, we have to examine both the gaps, and the final result is the gap between the expectations and the performance. The gap between promise and the performance can be filled up by improving the audit quality, and that we can examine that how it can be done. And the gap between the expectations and the promise can be bridged up by bringing public awareness and moderating the expectations of the society and the stakeholders.
So, sir, when you talk about the gap between the promise and the performance and you say improving audit quality, what should some of the steps be that the auditor should take to bridge that particular gap?
Okay. In order to improve audit quality, I believe certain factors should be considered.
Sir, when you spoke about the expectation gap and you broke it into two components, that is the gap, first gap between promise and performance and its impact on quality, relating to quality, how should the auditors go about improving audit quality?
There should be improvement in planning, monitoring, quality control and reporting. Planning is very important. Special efforts and procedures should be carried out to find out the existence of risk in the organization. Planning materiality factor is also very important. Then evaluation of internal systems, internal controls and computer controls should be done. Then the auditing should be done whether by sample, finding out a sample, or by data analytics. Now data analytics systems are available, tools are available, and that is why instead of throwing a sample, it is possible to look at the entire population and then find out what are the items which are beyond the normal parameters, and those can be examined in detail. So, data analytics can be very useful. Use of artificial intelligence also can be very important, and documentation is very important. If not documented, no audit is done. That is the principle. Then at the year end, there are number of valuations to be done, number of estimates have to be done, number of provisions have to be done. There are number of uncertainties at the end of the year end, at the end of the year, which have to be evaluated, uncertainties. There are many claims, counterclaims, there are many matters in appeals, in litigation, all this have to be evaluated, and there auditor has to use his skills. Accounting, compliance of accounting standards and compliance of auditing standards, that has to be ensured in detail. One more factor, very important factor, is the management override of controls. That when the management at the top overrides the controls, it is very difficult for the auditor to catch those that override of controls. The management frauds are very difficult to catch, and if you look at the history of the big frauds which have taken place in the world, most of the big frauds have taken place because of the management override of controls. The management either wants to falsify or have material misstatements in accounts to avoid, to conceal misappropriation of funds, or to reveal a better picture. And so that override of management control is very important to be examined. Auditor has to be very, very careful. Professional skepticism is also very important. Just because the client is reputed, auditor should not be auditor. It's possible that even in the reputed client there can be big fraud. It happened in many, in case of Enron, in case of Satyam, in many cases in reputed organizations the fraud took place. So many professional skepticism should be kept in mind. Professional judgment is very important. Auditor has to use his professional skills. It's not the tick box approach that you carry out some audit procedures according to auditing standards and the audit is done. Auditor has to use his professional skill and professional judgment. These are the important factors which should be kept in mind.
Yes, sir. So, going on to management overhead of controls, that directly relates to a fraud effectively. So, fraud is again an area where there is an expectation gap, because the stakeholders believe that auditors are responsible for detecting fraud. Auditors believe that they are not responsible for carrying out an investigation. They will perform only audit procedures. So, how to address this gap? I do not think this gap will ever get addressed, but how is there something the auditors can do more from what they are doing today?
Yes. There is a wide gap in this area, and first of all, public awareness has to be created that there is a difference between an audit and investigation and forensic audit. Audit is not designed to take care of every fraud. That can be done by investigation or by forensic audit if it is required. But in every situation, to have that investigation or forensic audit would be very difficult and will be very costly. By cost benefit analysis, it will not be advisable. And so, while auditor should design his procedures in such a manner that all the material misstatements arising out of the frauds are captured and material frauds are captured. But it may not, it's the society's expectation that each and every fraud should be covered cannot be done unless investigation or forensic audit is carried out.
So, is there something the auditors should be doing? One is creating an awareness of the stakeholder expectations, but can the auditors do anything about this?
I believe yes, auditors should extend the procedures.
Okay.
So, auditors should keep in mind that there can be a possibility of fraud, and so special procedures should be examined. Brainstorming exercise should be done to find out that which are the areas in which fraud can arise, and those areas should be audited in detail.
Okay. Because that is one area where auditors today, we do take cover under the limitations in the standards on auditing, saying that we are not responsible for fraud. But as you rightly said, auditors should perform focused procedures on this.
I think balance has to be achieved.
Yeah.
It's not possible to unearth every fraud.
Correct.
In organizations, there can be several frauds, and the auditor does not examine each and every every transaction. So it is not possible to unearth. But at the same time, procedures should be designed in such a manner that all the major frauds get
the
detected,
possibility of detecting
automatically get detected.
Yeah. Sir, next question, slightly diverging, is so India is probably looking at an option for joint audits. So in that scenario, what do you think the local firms should be doing to make a better utilization of the opportunities joint audits may provide? Because then you will have two auditors looking at the financial statements of large enterprises. And how does the local firms, which have so far not been exposed to these large audits, how do they prepare themselves for that?
Yes. Yes, you are right that the size of the audit client is going up.
Correct.
There are big companies and big corporations, but audit firms have by and large have remained small.
Yes.
And the small audit firm may not have all the expertise within the organization. And that is why the small firm should try to get these expert services expert services from outside in various areas. Every auditor cannot be expert in each area. For example, computer audit or the various sophisticated tools. But auditors should procure such services from experts outside. Then auditors should believe in the principle, consult, consult, consult. Person may not have knowledge with himself, may not have systems within the organization, but there should be the philosophy of consult within the organization, consult outside the organization. Whatever expert services are not available within the organization should be procured from outside. And this should, I believe, arise much more and more because of the wide gap between the size of the audit firm and the size of the auditee client.
Yeah. So, sir, would you think then to get these skill sets, networking will be a good opportunity for the audit firms to consider? Because when you network, you will combine multiple firms under one umbrella. You are allowed to share resources. Better expertise may come from different pockets of the firm, and which can get consolidated. And would network be a good way forward for the small firms to look at?
Yes, I believe yes. In fact, our institute had to come out with networking rules that in order to encourage networking. Because if there is a networking of the firms, the services, various type of expert services and the resources can be shared and benefit can be obtained. So there can be merger and amalgamation of firms. But sometimes merger and amalgamation of firms is difficult because it requires lot of planning, lot of reconciliation of minds of several persons. So if merger or amalgamation is not possible, at least sharing of the services, expert services within the firms or with other outside expert agencies should be done.
Okay. Networking is the way forward, is possible way forward for some of.
In fact, institute brought out the firms to.
They amended, they amended the networking guidelines and enabled more options. Definitely. Now, I'll go back to audit documentation, and you very rightly said audit documentation means if not documented.
If not documented, audit is not done.
It's not done. So today there is a perception that if my engagement documentation is fine, I don't need to worry about other elements of the system of quality control. That means as a firm, I believe that if my engagement documentation is fine, compliant with the standards, I am perfectly fine in every aspect. Would that be a correct saying, or would you believe that system of quality control is a different aspect, important aspect altogether in the whole scheme of things?
No, I could not.
No, can audit firms look at only engagement documentation as the important piece in the firm's setup of quality, or should there be other elements also? Because today system of quality control is talking about human resources, independence, monitoring.
No.
It has got multiple elements, and engagement performance is one of the elements.
No, I believe that overall all the documents are necessary. The independence has to be is required to be maintained. Other disciplines which are observed at the firm level should also be properly documented.
Should also be properly documented. Okay. So, any concluding thoughts, sir, in terms of advice to the firm, CA firms, in terms of gearing up for the opportunity of a joint audit? Any concluding thoughts? You have already shared some thoughts saying that they should expand their expertise, etc. Is there anything else you would like to add to that? For example, being very quality conscious, being willing to invest in quality. Any such thoughts which are there?
I believe investment in infrastructure is required. Investment in infrastructure, in talent, in training, in technology, and in time. In all these areas, all these T's are very important. Engagement, the infrastructure in talent. Talent has to be there within the audit organization. There should be talent for the various expertise in audit tools as well as various industry specializations. So talent has to be looked at. Then training has to be there, because so much regulatory developments take place every day that unless there is training and update with the developments which are taking place, the knowledge becomes stale. And that's why training is very important. technology is very important. The clients are investing crores of rupees, huge amounts, on improving software systems in their computer systems. Auditor has to keep pace with that. Auditor has to keep knowledge of the new systems which are developed by the client, so that he can find out the controls and he can find out the deficiencies.
Yeah.
And so auditor also has to develop technology. So training, talent, training, technology, and time. That adequate time has to be devoted, looking at the size of the organization, of the auditee, and the complexities of the business of the auditee. So time. So for all this infrastructure, auditor has to make investment, and that's why auditor also must ensure that he gets adequate fees, so that he can put adequate investment in this infrastructure.
Thank you, sir. So you brought up some of the points which we at True and Fair are also trying to bring out. We will be focusing heavily on technology. We will be focusing on training also. Time is something very personal to the CA firms, which as True and Fair we will not be able to contribute, and so is the case with the talent. We can only suggest that this is the type of an engagement team which you will have. It is up to the audit firm to build up those things, but lot of valuable inputs for True and Fair.
By bringing out this new initiative, I think it is the need of the hour that so many audit firms, small firms, do not have the resources in all these expert areas. It is the need of the hour to provide such services.
Thank you so much for your time, sir. Appreciate your views, and we will do consider them as we develop our quality policies. Thank you.